Hi guys, thank you so much for coming back to my channel. It's been 3 weeks and I can say this has been my best quarter since I started reselling. The work that I put into what I do is reflected usually in the month after I do that work, if that makes sense. And I expected to have a pretty good quarter because I was really building up for it late summer this year, and it's been great. So I've genuinely just been really busy, and doing a video has been on the back of my mind because obviously getting business done is the main priority. This is kind of like my fun thing. So anyway, because I've had such a good quarter, like my best quarter yet, I thought I'll make a video sharing like tips and advice and a point of view, a perspective maybe. So I always get new viewers, like I said, on things that aren't just my regularly uploaded hauls. So I do want to disclose, because I say this a lot, but I know some of you haven't heard me say this. There is no wrong way to resell if you're not hurting anybody else, obviously. Like, I don't want you guys stealing stuff and reselling it and saying, well, Honey Rags told me. No, there's no wrong way to resell as long as you are making money and not hurting anybody else in the process. So I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want somebody to watch this and say, I didn't do any of these things and I'm successful, so what is she talking about? This is what I have to offer, what I have to give, point of view. Another thing I want to disclose, I get side railed extremely easily in my videos. I've never been diagnosed with ADD or anything like that, but I will get on a tangent. I just keep going and keep going and keep going. So I'm going to try to like keep wrapping myself up back to the point of what I'm making this video about. I'm just making a video in general about how to become, or how I became, a successful reseller, what worked best for me. And I really want to highlight, I actually made like a really cute little mini index list. I don't read off scripts, obviously, but because I get so sidetracked, how I became a successful reseller. And I really wanted to highlight what I think is important to building a good business model and ending up, I don't want to say ending up here, because wherever you want to end up as a successful reseller, I think all of this stuff will help, all of this information. One more disclosure, I don't have any miracle secrets. That's another thing. I don't sell packages promising that I have this big reseller secret that I'm hiding and this will make you money. It's not that. It's not that at all. It's really my point of view and perspective. So I wrapped it up in 3 minutes. Okay, that usually doesn't happen, especially for videos like this. So anyway, my name is Riley. You may know me as Honey Rags over in the Instagram reseller community. I have been reselling since 2016. I started selling, well, my fiance's been doing it for over a decade now. And when I met him, I'm like, I want to open up an eBay account. Like, I saw the money he was making just on the side, just part-time, because he does it part-time. And I was like, and I did his taxes one year and I was like, okay, babe, like, sign me up. But really, when I first started reselling, it was more of like a hobby because I was a stay-at-home mom. I still am a stay-at-home mom, but now I'm like a work-at-home mom. So when I first started doing it, it was really just the thrill of like, I found an old KitchenAid mixer at a thrift shop for like $1.99, and it was from the 70s. It was like that avocado green color, and it was a hand mixer, and I sold it for like $16. And the buyer paid for shipping on Etsy, and that was my first sale as a reseller, not going through my fiance's account. And it was like just a hobby. Like, I was like, oh my God, I just rescued this KitchenAid mixer. So it really has evolved. I was reselling vintage on Etsy for the first year, and then I was reselling some stuff on my fiance's eBay account. And I'm like, it's time for me to, go big or go home. And every year I've consistently grown as a reseller. That's also important to note. I do not disclose my numbers. There's been a couple times where I'll share an eBay screenshot over on Instagram. But I just don't disclose numbers. It's just not something that it's not that I'm not comfortable doing it, but I don't know. I've seen people accuse other resellers of faking it all because they don't disclose their numbers. Like, well, show us the money or it's not real. But like, those of you who have followed me enough, like, you know where I started because I share my personal life, and you know where I've ended up. So this is real. Those are all my disclosures. Because at some point there was a flip that switched. Like I said, I was selling vintage things. It was fun. I was making disposable income. I was making, that, I hate to use this term, I was making that stay-at-home parent cash, like where I didn't have to ask my fiance, like, hey, can I use the bank card today? Because it was like, nothing against that. But I just wanted my own cash that I'm like, if I have an extra $200 every month, that's how low I set my bar. I'm like, if I have an extra $200 every month, I'll be able to go get my nails done. I'll be able to take the kids out to eat, a couple of times. Like I won't have to, it was just one of those things where I wanted that freedom. So that's how it started. But there was something that switched like after the first year and a half, something like that, where I realized that I was slowly growing, my Etsy for vintage, and I'm just talking vintage home goods because that's what I sold. I saw it slowly growing, like $200 a month. And then like I'd have like $347 months, which I was like, that $147 made a huge difference in my mind at the time. And I kind of realized, I'm like, I have an opportunity in front of me to really put time and effort and investment into this. Why would I not take that if I know this is something that I want to do? So basically what I'm trying to say here is there is no wrong way to start reselling. I started very slow, but when that flip switched and I realized this is what I want to do, you really have to get to a point where you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm sure about this or not, because I've been in this community for a long time now, and I have seen so many people come and go. That's another thing. Like there's always people who are whining in other YouTubers' comment sections about how there's too many resellers now. I've seen more people come and go than I've seen stayed in the years that I've been in the Instagram reseller community. And the ones who have stayed are the ones who really completely invested in it. So it is, once that flip which switches for you and you realize I want to do this, you can't just put 4 hours a week into it anymore, unless you just want to keep making that disposable income. If that's all you want is a disposable income and you don't really want to grow, that's fine. If you want to grow, you have to take the all or nothing approach. When I first flipped my switch, I went into used clothing because there's such an abundance of it. It's easier to ship. I hate to be that person that says quantity over quality, but I could find way much more resellable used clothing than I could find hard goods at the thrift stores that I was going to. So really that all or nothing approach was very, very important for me. I remember it was like one day, it was literally like an overnight decision. I woke up and I told my fiance, because it was a Saturday, and I'm like, I'm going to hit every thrift shop in a 12-mile radius because we have a lot. I'm very lucky where I live. And I'm going to look for I want to look at all the vintage clothes, because at this point I was still stuck on vintage. I wasn't even into name brand. I wanted to resell vintage clothing. And I was already in the reseller community, but I didn't have my Honey Rags account. This was my older account when I was reselling vintage. And I knew that vintage clothes were like on the rise in popularity, and I find them all the time, right? And I went to all the thrift stores, and I think I spent like $350 to $400 that day, which now that's not a big investment at all. But at that time, that was a lot. That was like 2 months worth of reselling for me that I was reinvesting back into my business. And that's another important thing, not to get side railed again, but you make that money, you make that first couple $100 and you go one way. You might be the type person that's like, I want to reward myself for this, which I was in the first year. And then you might be the type person that says, I'm going to take this money and I'm going to reinvest it bigger and have, you know what I mean, if that makes sense. So the first year I was at a very slow growth because I wasn't reinvesting that money very much. I was still doing it for fun. Once I flip switched and I invested that first, $350, $400, it was like, I felt like I had more to lose now. So I was like, I'm going to buy this stuff and I'm going to get it sold. I'm going to, spoiler alert, half that shit that I bought on that Saturday, those were bad buys because I was fully invested and I probably just broke even with making my money back. But guess what? I was already at that point, like my flip, I hate using the same word so many times, but it was completely switched. And I'm like, okay, so now, and then I kind of took it as a loss. I'm like, yeah, I made my money. I broke even after all that time and effort I put into listing those vintage clothes. It's probably a loss. But now I know what to look for because of what sold and what didn't sell. And unfortunately, the easier way to do that would have been like fully immersing myself in the reseller community and like watching what sold. But I'm a hands-on learner, as you can see, because I've been flailing around my hands like a damn animal since I started recording. But yeah, so really, I feel like a motivational speaker right now. I hate when I do this for videos. Really, that all or nothing approach was very, very important to me. And then the second tip that really kind of shadows that is keep that income, keep the income you're receiving, keep it rolling, reinvest it into more inventory, more equipment, more, whatever. So another thing that really helped at the beginning was getting a lot of inventory. Like I said, at the beginning, I had a lot of bad buys. Even though I don't want to scare you guys away, but yeah, at the beginning, the first 6 months to a year of reselling, when I was really fully investing in it, I started to get a little bit nervous because I was like breaking even and I was making that disposable income, but I wasn't where I wanted to be, because I looked back at the year before on the stuff I was selling on Etsy and I was like, I was making this money and I wasn't reinvesting it into my business, and I had the same amount of disposable money, but now I'm reinvesting a lot more into my business and I'm still getting the same amount of money. So like, where's the growth? The growth doesn't come right away. And this goes back to when I said resellers come and go. I know that I could make a list because I follow other accounts. I follow small accounts. I could make a list of resellers that have gone all or nothing and then they stopped reselling, closed their closets, whatever. Keep this in mind if you're just starting out. The first 6 months to a year, you may not see a big return in your investment. But that in itself is an investment. That first year is an investment. It was probably more towards just the first 6 months for me, honestly. But then I did finally see that growth. So most resellers, when they do start out, unfortunately, at least from the unrecorded or undocumented data that I see on Instagram as a spectator, most people give up within that first year because they're taking all the tips and they are trying their hardest and they're investing money and time, and they get scared because they see, oh my God, I've spent $1,000 on inventory this year and I only have a return of $1,500 to $3,000 over the entire year. Like, that's not worth it. The first 6 months to a year, think of it as building. I hate to be this corny, but think of it as building a store. You have to start with some inventory. You have to start with some experience. Unless you have a good investment idea and you're like a stock market bro, the investments on resale don't work like meme stocks do. Do you guys know what meme stocks are? It's like I'm not even gonna go into detail. That's a side rail thing that I was about to do and I stopped myself. So yeah, just don't get scared away from that first year. Next. Find a niche. Okay, so I resell anything and everything. For a while, I was doing Amazon pallets and used clothing and the vintage home goods, and though I still do all of that stuff. So I'm not saying like you can only resell one thing. Obviously, we all know that's not true. However, what has gotten me to this point was over time realizing what was giving me the most return, not what was the most fun, because Amazon pallets were really fun, but what's giving me the most return right now, or what has consistently given me the most return. I hate breaking down numbers, but eventually you have to do that. And at some point within the first 2 years or whatever, I had to look and I was like, okay. And I realized the easiest thing to ship, the thing that sells the best for me, the thing that I'm most comfortable with, and what's giving me the most return right now is used clothing in general. So even though I do still do Amazon pals and I do vintage home goods and estate sale and antiques and stuff, my money, my income comes from used clothes. So it is important if you do find your niche and you're comfortable there, I would put more time investing in that instead of trying too much and overwhelming yourself and ordering Amazon pallets and doing this and that and not used makeup, liquidated makeup and stuff like that. Find your niche and like treat it as like your golden goose egg. So you can have all these other little Easter eggs, but your golden goose egg that's giving you the most, keep focusing on it, because there's a reason that it's working for you, and it's because you either know what you're doing, you were meant to do it, etc. Damn it, I thought that I would pick it up like that. I feel like ever since COVID, like I feel like I shouldn't lick my finger on camera and touch paper that belongs to me, that is in my house, in the room that I'm breathing my own air in. Like I feel like it's gonna gross people out. Or it's okay. Here I go. Oh, speaking of your comfortable niche. With that said, don't ever get too comfortable, because I say this all the time, but brands that I used to, and this works for anything, not just clothes, brands that were like my absolute always pick up, they always give me money, they always give me a return 2 years ago, half that stuff, maybe not half, like maybe 20% of that stuff, I don't even pick up anymore because you have to change with the market. So don't ever get too comfortable. There have been times where I was picking up brands that I had a connection to because they sold for me in the past, like Garnet Hill. And I kept picking them up. And then I looked in my closet one day and I filtered Garnet Hill brand. And I'm like, damn, I got a lot of stuff that hasn't sold over the last few months. And I keep bringing in more of it. So I had to cut ties to that brand. So don't get too comfortable with a brand. Don't get too comfortable with a certain area of resale. Like, I'll constantly change, but use your common sense as well. Oh, this is another, okay, so this goes in hand also, shadowing the prior one that I just told you. It is very important to just, when you understand that it's time to cut losses, cut your losses and move on. If that means moving inventory, move the inventory. If that means redonating inventory, it means redonating it. And I'm not saying that this is the right way to do it because there's people that hold on to things for years and then they finally sell. I get that. But for me personally, it's very important that if this stuff isn't moving, I'm cutting my losses and I'm going to invest my time in something else. It's a really good feeling, like weight lifted off your shoulders when I move. And I'm not talking about half your inventory. I think I've got like probably 2,000 pieces of active inventory. So it's very important because of the quantity that I'm working with to purge. It's important to purge and move inventory because is it really worth sitting on all those pieces, hoping they sell, if you're only going to get like maybe $7 a piece, or even if they aren't like nice and expensive pieces and you're sitting on them, like think about something else. Think about alternatives, like sending it to the Real. Think about sending it. I know a lot of people have issues with ThredUp, but look around at like, I do a lot of in-person consignment shops with my old inventory. I'll go to Plato's Closet. What's that other one? Style Encore, because they accept higher end like career style brands. And it is very important to keep that inventory moving for me because it's almost like a black cloud over my inventory warehouse when I have too much stuff that's been sitting for too long. And it also, like going through my inventory, trying to find what sold and going through all those pieces, that's a waste of time too, because I got to go through a whole tub of stuff that hasn't sold in 6 months just to find the one thing that sold that was listed 2 days ago. Tips from Honey Rags. This is really the last thing that I noted down. Like I said, I told you guys there's going to be no breakthroughs. There's no secret here. This is my point of view. This is actually probably out of everything I said, I do think this is the most important. Always plan for next month. Always plan for the next 6 months. Plan for next year. Just like, I shouldn't say anything in your life, but the stuff that I bring home this month and how hard I work this month, that won't be reflected right away. That might not even be reflected for 3 more months. Plan for next month. That's what's worked for me. I've had the best quarter yet, and I've done a lot of work in this quarter, wrapping, shipping packages, pulling inventory, all that. I've done a lot of work this quarter, and planning for next quarter, because that's another thing. It's like a rolling snowball. You're like overwhelmed because this quarter is like so big and it's exciting, but it's also overwhelming. But then you also have to think, oh my God, I got to keep up with this. I have to keep it growing. And I've told you guys in some Instagram stories, I am ready to hire somebody for help, but I don't want to be a micromanager. I want to be in a place where I don't have to worry about treating someone like shit because I'm trying to be a micromanager. So anyway, that's another subject. The work that I did 2 months ago is why I'm having such a great quarter. I've had my best quarter yet because of the work that I did 2 months ago. So I know at the very beginning, I was putting 10 to 15 hours a week into reselling. And this probably goes more for full-time resellers. I should have noted that at the beginning, but I do think a lot of these can help for part-time. At the beginning, there were some times where I was like, I'll take a few days off. And then it turned into like, I'll just work like 10 hours a week and just try to find the best stuff. And it would bite me in the ass 2 months later because I'd be like, all right, why are my sales plateauing? I don't want to see a plateau. I want to see steady growth. That's the goal. And no, I haven't blown up into a multi-millionaire, but I've gotten further now in life than I ever thought I would get ever. I had a hard time in high school. I didn't have enough faith in myself or confidence in myself to ever go to college. I never thought I'd end up here. I hate to say like it's a dream come true, but I still sit back and I'm like, so thrifted clothes really got me here, because that's just crazy to me. So always plan for next month. The work you do now, it will come back. And even like I said, if you're in the first year, the work you're doing now, it will come back as long as you keep consistency, keep yourself motivated. You know, like I said, it is very important to stay on top of those bad buys. Like I said, you will make them, but learn from them. Don't get discouraged and quit, or say, you know, I mean, it's okay if you want to quit and say this is too much, it's not what I expected. That's fine. But if you want to be successful, learn from the bad buys. Instead of having a bad taste in your mouth from them, realize, yeah, you spent money on them and you may have lost it, but you spent money on a weird form of reseller education. Like your little reseller university was just that big bag of shit over there that didn't sell. You know what I mean? Okay. This was 23 minutes long. I did fantastic. I was like, this is going to be an hour long. I'm going to have to cut so much shit out because I don't ever stop talking. So those are my biggest points if you want to be a successful reseller. Like I said, you really want to make it through that first year. You maybe not have to every reseller, but it's important for most of us to find a niche in, you know, that golden goose egg, and keep investing in it. And that goes for platforms too. If you're on eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari, and eBay's giving you the most return, I'm not saying stop listing on Poshmark and Mercari, but focus on that golden egg, and then make sure you warm up, put heating lamps over the other eggs in the time being. Vice versa, if your return is on Mercari, which I don't know one damn reseller who has the biggest return on Mercari because I can't stand it. I'm just kidding. I like Mercari. Then do that for that. The same doing it with clothes, or if you do vintage stuff, or if your niche is used books. A lot of resellers that's all they do is used books. I'm jealous because I would love to do that, but I'm already comfortable with what I'm doing. And I'm not into books the way I'm into used clothes. Like, it's really, they've grown on me. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I always try to tread very, very lightly because I don't want to be that person that gives like unwanted advice. I don't want to ever make anybody feel like they're doing it the wrong way. I do want to be encouraging, and I try to always be understanding and realize there's so many business models out there. That's why I wanted to give you guys my point of view, how I became a successful reseller. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys made it this far, I love you. It does help the algorithm if you leave a comment, because I feel like for those of you who made it that far, you've enjoyed me enough. I haven't completely turned you off. It does help if you like the video or leave a comment. I do read all the comments. I've been very slacking lately about responding because I have this weird thing where I have to respond to everybody at once. And I've been slacking because I've been so busy, but I do read every comment, and it's usually at the end of the night. And most of the time you guys like pep talk me, and it makes me happy. So I love you so much. I'm going to leave a link down below in the description to my Instagram, which is honey.rags. From there, you can go right to my website that's been under construction for about 2 years. So it's kind of a lost cause, but I still want to have it because one day I want to do something with it. I love you. Happy selling, happy thrifting, and stay safe.